Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a lovely day. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I get to share with you a couple notebook projects today. I thought it'd be fun to create something for gift giving. Love making cards, but I also like making paper crafts. So this here is part of the brand new Vintage Treasures collection by Becca Feeken over at the Spellbinder shop. Lots and lots to this new collection, and I encourage you guys to check it out. Super pretty stuff. Now this here is called the Adorned notebook, and it creates a really easy little notepad that you can give as a gift. So I thought we'll make two of those today. I'm going to bring in some pattern paper. And I'm going to take the largest die that's in the set and cut out my front panel and my back panel with the pattern paper here. Now this is a 6x6 sheet and it just barely fits. I flipped it over to make sure that I wasn't cutting on the edge, but it does fit a 6x6 sheet of pattern paper. Okay, there's score lines on here. There's two of them, and I'm just going to use my bone folder to reinforce those score lines. And then it's going to give me like a J shaped. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Just reinforcing those score lines there. And then there's our second J shape. Now we're going to flip this over, tuck it behind the first layer, and it's basically going to look like this. But we need to secure it with some tape. So I'm going to be using some score tape. I think it's super strong. If you have some strong glue, I think your multimedia mat would work great too. But for drawing purposes in the video, I thought score tape would work perfect, and it did. So I'm going to add two layers, one just above the very first score line, and then right closer to the scalloped edge side. And then I'll use my craft pick. We're going to remove the release paper, and we're going to adhere this to our second panel there. Now you want to make sure that the top edge of your second panel is right up against that score line. This way it's nice and even and flush, and you have a perfectly balanced little notebook cover and the backing. So that's basically your front and back cover. So easy to do. Okay, also included in the die set is this funny little piece, which is actually a pencil holder. It's so cute. I'm going to die cut that out with the pattern paper, and there are score lines on this also. There's 4, and they're evenly spaced to create a long, thin little box. And then that little flap on the bottom, you're going to tuck inside that little box, and that's what's going to hold your pencil inside the little notepad. So once I have those score lines reinforced, I'm going to add a couple little pieces of score tape here, and then I'm also going to add it to one of the end flaps too. Now the ends have beveled edges, like they're diagonally cut off. You want to add tape to one side of those. And then before I fold in the longer flaps, I'm going to do that tucking with that very bottom piece. This way I can press down really good. And then with these two flaps, I'll place the tape side in first, and then I'll place the other flap right over the top. So I have this square little tube. And then just to reinforce that tape that I had secured, I'm putting a pen in there and pressing down. That way I know it's really stuck down. Okay, on the very back side where we're going to add tape to, there's those beveled edges. We're just going to add a couple pieces of score tape behind there. That way we could stick it down on the inside of our little notepad. Okay, we're going to stick our little pencil holder in now. So I'm going to open it up, and then I'm making sure that the bottom edge of my pencil holder is at the very bottom of the J shape. This way when it closes, it still has that J shape. We'll just tack it down. I'm going to put it over to the left. And boy, that sure is not the left. I'm going to put it over to the right. But you can see here, it fits perfectly in that J shape there. Okay, now I have my paper pad. You can create your own paper pad with printer paper, but I picked up these Post-it note pads. I thought it would be easy to trim down, and it really was. I just used my paper trimmer. The full pad was pretty thick, but I just trimmed off a little bit off the bottom and then a little bit off the right side. And what I did was I separated the post-it notes. So they're still sticky on there, but I separated them to cut them out, and then I could place them back together to create my little pad. Now the size of this is 2.5 inches wide by 4.25 inches high. So it will fit right perfectly inside my little notepad. Now to secure this, I'm going to add some double-sided tape. And if you wanted to go a little bit wider with the pad, you could too. But I'm making sure the very top edge here is pressed up against the score lines on the very top. This way it closes nice and neat. It sticks down beautifully, and all you do is pull up your little Post-it notes and you have a cute little pad, perfect for your little purse or even a gift giving. I think that's really nice. So cute. Okay, so we're going to set that aside, and I want to embellish the front a little bit. So I have a piece of polka dot pattern paper. It measures 2.5 inches by 6 inches, and I'm folding it in half, and then I'm using my score tape. I'm going to put some score tape on the top left and the top right. We're going to create a little envelope. Once our tape's adhered, we'll just remove the release paper and fold over that front. So we have a little envelope that opens up, and we can tuck something in there. Okay, after we have that done, I'm going to take a circle die, and I want to cut out a little notch in this envelope, just using a circle die. And then I'm bringing in a few more pieces of pattern paper that coordinate with that alphabet pattern paper. And then I'm going to use this flower die and cut out a striped flower and an orange flower. And then with the circle die, I'll cut out a circle with that tan colored pattern paper. Once everything's ran through my die cut machine, there's my little envelope. And at first I was just going to leave it like that, and I thought, you know, we're going to make a little tag. I had some extra orange cardstock, and it was a little bit of a tight squeeze getting it in my envelope. It kept wanting to stick to my score tape. So I'm going to trim it down just a little bit. So the size of this ends up being 1 7/8 of an inch by 3.25 inches tall. Now I'm going to just slide that back in my little envelope, make sure it slides in and out pretty easy. And then I thought we'll create a tag with it. So I'm going to use my crocodile, punch a hole in there, and then I'm going to grab an eyelet. I'm just going to grab gold one here, and I'm going to set that in my little hole punched area, and then we'll just secure it just for a little added detail. And then I'm going to bring in some scissors, and we're going to trim off the left and right corner on top to create a little tag. We'll stick that back in our little envelope sleeve, and I think that looks cute. You could even put a little message on the back if you wanted to. You put a little crafty cash in there too for a little gift. I'm going to take some white twine. This is thicker twine, and I'm going to run it through my little tag top here. And after we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and use some glue, and we're going to glue down our little tan circle on top of our little tag. I'm going to offset it just a little bit because I like that look. Once that's secured, we're going to go ahead and glue our flowers. I'm going to layer them together just so a little bit of that orange is peeking out behind the stripe paper. We'll take our glue and go ahead and glue that in the center of our little circle. I love working with pattern paper. I don't do it very often. This is a great way to use up your paper pads too. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is you could put it in the center on the very top, but I wanted to create a closure for my paper pad. So I thought this was a great way to do it. I'm just going to add 2 pieces of score tape on the bottom of my little tag here. And then this is going to go tucked underneath the scallop. So when you open it, the tag's going to open with the scalloped edge. I'm just making sure the top piece is centered, kind of lining it up, and then once it's centered, I can press down and that score tape's going to connect to the scalloped edge. And it kind of gives my closure a little bit of weight too. Okay, after we have that done, you can see here it opens and closes pretty good. But to go one step further, I'm going to use some magnets. These are leftover pieces of magnets that I use for my dies. They have adhesive backing, so I just trimmed it down to a small square. I'm going to put one on the very bottom, and then I have the top one already on it. And then I'm just going to close over the flap and then press down really good. And then when you open it, they separate, but when you close it, they connect beautifully together. You just take your little pencil. This is actually a regular size pencil, and I just used my scissors and trimmed it down. You probably want to sharpen it to put it in your purse, but I think it creates a great little gift. My tag was giving, or my string on my little tag was giving me problems, so I used a glue dot to secure them down. But it just opens and closes beautifully, and then if you want to add a little message on your tag, you could pull that out and do that too. So it's a nice little gift. I'm going to add one little pearl to the center of my flower, and then that completes my first little project. And this is the Adorned Notepad die set, and it makes it creating little notepads super easy. This would be good for craft fairs too. Okay, we're going to make one more. So again, I die cut out 2 pieces of pattern paper. I'm just going to add score tape right above the score line here. And then we're going to go ahead and attach our back panel. We'll just butt that up against the score line and secure it really good. Lovely. Now for this one, I want to show you a different way that you could create a closure for your paper pad. Now I brought in another post-it notepad and I trimmed it down. For this one though, I'm not going to add the little pencil holder. I just want the notepad. So this is 3 1/4 inches wide by 4 1/2 inches tall. So it's going to cover the entire inside of my little notepad cover here. We'll just press that down, and I think that looks so cute and so easy. Okay, I have a piece of white scalloped edge here. What I did was take the die and just cut out that same scalloped edge and then trim down my panel. I thought we could create a closure with the scalloped area. So I'm adding a piece of score tape. And then with the score tape facing up, I'm going to kind of lift it up a little bit so it's peeking out of the stripe scalloped area. And then this way, I think it adds a nice little detail. I wanted to show you too that if you use some twine over the bottom scalloped area, that helps create a nice little closure also. And you could also flip it around. You don't have to have the scalloped edge on the very bottom. You can have it on the top. But what I'm going to do is take my polka dot panel here. I'm going to trim it down a little bit over 1/4 inch. This way it's not the length of my notepad, but this way I can tuck it in between both of the scallops. And then that way it helps secure it too. It'll help keep it closed. So that looks cute on its own, but I kind of liked the little scalloped, the white scalloped edge on there. So we're going to make another one here. I'm going to take that large main die and I'm going to flip it around and bring it all the way to the edge. So the solid portion of the die is at the very edge of my panel, and then I'm going to die cut that out. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to die cut out a leaf die that I have in my stash. And then also in the die set itself, there's a little sentiment that says notes. I'm going to die cut that out about 4 times. And then I did use my glue and layered the notes all together. That way there's a little dimension to it. Okay, now from my second scallop panel here, my second white one, I'm going to basically do the same thing. I'm going to add it right behind the first scallop layer. I'm not going quite all the way to the bottom, so it is raised up a little bit. But this way I can tuck my cover panel in between both of those white scallops, and that way it just helps secure it and keeps it closed. Okay, we're going to do a little more die cutting. I'm going to die cut out a circle with this pattern paper, and then with the orange pattern paper I'm going to die cut out a slightly larger scallop circle, and then I'm going to bring in the tan paper. I'm going to cut out a medium-sized tan flower. The flower dice actually came in the die set also. And then using some stripe paper I'm going to die cut out the larger flower. Once everything's die cut, I'm going to use my glue and attach my first circle to my scallop circle. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue that down in the front of my little notepad here. Lovely. Next we're going to take the end, add a little glue. We're going to layer our flowers together first. We're just going to layer the striped with the tan. Okay, now we're going to take the end here. You can see here when I layered them together, it gave it a little bit of dimension. If you don't like doing this, you could use a piece of fun foam. I think it would work the same way. But I'm going to start off by gluing down my end. And with the glue, it gives you a little bit of time to kind of adjust the placement. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of it, making sure it's centered in my circle there. I'm going to glue down my little flower, and then I did trim down my leaf to where there's only 3 white leaves showing, but I just tucked that underneath my flower. I'm going to add 1 pearl to the center of my flower, and then that finishes off my second notepad. I think this is a great little set that you could create multiple gifts for, maybe for a craft fair or for stocking stuffers. I think a Christmas print would be super cute, but they were so easy to make, and I hope it gives you some ideas on how to create different closures for it. But I just thought I'd share that with you. I love creating with paper, and so this is something a little different. But if you're interested in the Vintage Treasures collection, I'll link it down below. If you're interested in the little Adorned notebook die set, I'll link it also. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. I wish you a lovely day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.